followed suit and the movement gained momentum. Then up here he says, revolutionary class in itself, but not for itself, objectively, but not subjectively. Its radicalization will depend on the catalyst outside its ranks. The development of radical political unconsciousness among the masses is conceivable only if and when the economic stability or the social cohesion of the system begin to weaken. So, and I think that's part of what we've been talking about before, how the socialists kind of set up a system that actually weakens the economic stability and the social cohesion. There's a part in there, like I just was thinking about Ed's democratic socialists, actually just populist fascists, and they just wanted to put this extra thing out there. It's really interesting how the fascists have switched R for F in order to have you not see who they are. And that means the fascists have taken the F from fascism and put an R into it and made you focus on racism in order for you to not notice that they're actually fascists. So, they don't want you to focus on the fascism that they're actually pushing for by making you focus on racism that doesn't exist as much. And I think that's something you definitely see there. Now, this thing again, the way he's writing here, is he advocating for this, or is he just observing and making an observation of what's actually happened, which I agree is what happens?
Well, I think, again, it's like it goes to what I said in the last point about how he kind of realized, like, okay, the working class is not going to overthrow the system. And that's I was going to actually bring up Marx and Lenin here, because the idea that Lenin, that's what Marxism, Leninism is. It's the idea that, okay, the masses are not going to wake up on their own. We're technically bourgeoisie, but we're going to wake them up on their behalf. They're going to rise up, become socialists, and then that's going to lead to communism, etc. And of course, that's what Lenin tried to do. Stalin tried, basically similar version, I would say a bit more repressive. Mao tried some version of that. And then some have said that's what the woke are trying to do as well. Like, that's why James Lindsay calls the woke stuff Leninism 4.0, because it's the same basic idea. Okay, we know what's best. We're going to wake up these people, and then they're going to overthrow the system. And then that's where he talks about, traditional role of Marxist-Leninists. He talks about parliamentarize itself, the idea that it's sort of like it says, you're integrated into the bourgeois democratic process. So, okay, you have candidates that represent those interests. That's supposed to be like AOC and Bernie today. We can debate the merits of that, but that's the idea. And then the idea is that, okay, it'll actually be in the system, versus if there's just a radical movement that stays outside of it and destroys things, it's not going to have power. And I think that's what happened. I mean, I can't speak for Marcuse, obviously, but I think that's kind of what happened with people like Angela Davis, his mentee, because, she was cheering East Germany. She was going to these anti-Israel things, all this, but like, she was on the FBI watch list, and like, she went to jail. And I think he realized you can't have this radical thing outside of the movement expected to take hold. You have to sort of infiltrate the institutions, as we talked about with Gramsci, at least to a point, and then that's how you sort of win people over. That's what I take it to mean, anyway.
Okay. Yeah, so he's just pointing out here the modifications in the structure of capitalism onto the basis and the development of an organization of a potentially revolutionary forces. So modification. So you can say modification, some changes in it could actually make it harder for this organization of potentially revolutionary forces. Some can make it easier. And I think this is where you go into that whole neo-fascist type of thing, where they want to have some control over some aspects in order to modify it. And I don't think something free, that's why I think it's not free market capitalism, when you have this system where you have these modifications. The modifications are those regulations, are the taxation, are the special pleading, are the lobbyists and things like that. So they want to get into that class, because once they're in control of the modifications of that structure, they can help lead to a situation that develops a revolutionary force in more of a sense. So I think there definitely are certain aspects, certain people in different positions that are trying to get that done and trying to make sure that they have actual gravediggers for whatever they refer to as capitalism. So yeah, that's something that I think.
Well, think too back to our. Well, think back to our discussion on critical race theory. The idea was that the civil rights movement didn't go far enough, and Derek Bell came up with the idea of interest convergence, that, things like segregation things like ending segregation were just sort of placating the more radical black populations, and that it didn't go far enough. And I have to look more into this, but Angela Davis actually said in an interview that Marcuse actually got fired from Brandeis because he was too radical. Now, she said there was more to the story than that. I don't know the details, but I think that's kind of what he was seeing here, that you can't just come out and say, okay, we're going to tear down this system and implement socialism. People aren't going to get behind it. So you have to find ways to sort of inch into the system, gradually take it over. And critical race theory has a similar approach, like the general ideas, and then later there was critical pedagogy, and then it got applied to, originally it was the law, but then it started getting applied to voting and everything else. It had to find a way to sort of infiltrate the different institutions, these different movements, all this. That's where the whole critical structuralist came from, and then that's how you take over. But it's like just saying we're going to tear down the system, give us power. No, it'd be very hard for everyone to get behind that. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Pendants. 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 Pendants.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.